Have you ever wondered why some people get lost even when they are trying to save themselves? Why would someone come back so many times to the one who hurts, even knowing that it will hurt? Perhaps what we call weakness is actually a misunderstood attempt to resist. What if addiction isn't the problem, but the language that pain found to be heard? Today, let's do something rare. Look beyond behavior. Listen to what is behind the silent cry of those who no longer know how to ask for help. Because not all vice is a mistake. Sometimes it's just a soul trying to get home. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why does someone give in to an addiction, even knowing the price they will pay? Is it weakness, lack of character, or is it a cry for help that no one has heard? Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human soul, did not see vice as a disease to be punished, nor as a moral defect to be corrected. He saw the addiction as the silent cry of a soul in crisis, a desperate attempt to rediscover something sacred, even through distorted paths. Because no one is addicted to alcohol, drugs, pornography. People are addicted to relief, addicted to the brief silence that anesthetizes the internal chaos, in the flight that offers for a few moments the illusion of peace. What if what we call addiction is actually an unconscious pilgrimage by meaning? What if it is the wrong answer to a question that has never been heard? If only someone had asked this person before judging her, what is it that hurts so much inside you need to shut up with substances? What is missing that you try to fill with excesses? Sometimes addiction is not the problem. It is the misunderstood attempt to survive a life that no longer makes sense. But what happens when the relief passes and the emptiness returns even greater? The addict does not want to run away from life. He wants to run away from a life that no longer makes sense. A life where he wakes up every day with his soul in a coma. Can you imagine what it is, living surrounded by people but feeling that no one sees you? Laughing on the outside while everything inside collapses in silence. Try to be strong all the time until the body gives way and the mind collapses. It is not pleasure that the addict seeks, it is relief. It is pause. It is the attempt to stop a pain that the world insists on ignoring. And when no one listens, the pain cries out in other ways, through compulsion, dependence, excess, not because the person is weak, but because he is exhausted from being strong. Have you ever stopped to notice how many people are smiling with their eyes out? How many are holding on with their fingertips not to fall? And even so, keep saying, it's okay. Addiction is often only the most visible symptom of an invisible pain, an attempt to survive history itself when it becomes unbearable. As if to say, I know it hurts me, but it's the only thing that still makes me forget that I'm already hurt. And then, instead of compassion, what he gets is judgment. But how to judge someone for trying to put out a fire when no one has ever taught him to use water, only fire? It is easy to judge the addict. It is difficult to look at the pain that led you there, because facing the pain of the other often forces us to look at our own. He destroyed himself because he wanted to. She has no willpower. It is lack of God, shame, discipline. But who are we to say that, without knowing the weight that person carries in his chest? Maybe he tried. Maybe he asked for help in silence. Maybe he endured more than anyone can imagine until he couldn't bear it anymore. But the world has no time for nuance. It prefers labels, and the label is simple: weak, irresponsible, lost, as if it was easier to see someone as a problem than as someone who carries too big a problem alone. And if we said, the addict is not weak, he is just too hurt to continue pretending that everything is fine. Could you look at it the same way? We judge the behavior, but we ignore the context. We pointed the finger, but forgot that if we had lived the same story, maybe we would have chosen the same escape. Because no one is born wanting to get lost. but some grow up without anyone to hold them when they start falling. And sometimes, the only thing that a person needs is not punishment or a sermon, it's someone who sees the human behind the error, recognize the pain behind the failure, and instead of condemning, ask, do you want help or just someone who will listen to you without judging? There are pains that have no name, only weight. You wake up, and it is already there, like a silence that weighs more than any sound. Like a void that does not leave you alone, even surrounded by everything. This is what the addiction tries to anesthetize. The invisible hole that lives between the chest and the soul. A hole that does not close with advice, nor with motivational phrases, because it is not about strength. It is about an absence that screams. The void that screams. Have you felt it? It's as if the soul is buried alive, screaming inside, while on the outside you smile in the automatic. And the most painful? It's when you don't even know what you're running from. You just feel like you need to run. So you pay dearly for a little silence, a momentary relief, a second of artificial peace, and this bought silence becomes the only place where the inner chaos seems to stop. But it charges. And the more you try to silence the pain, the more it screams in other languages, in compulsion, in anxiety, in isolation. It's the shadow moving behind your eyes, the part of you that was exiled and now tries to come back through the back door. Anger not felt, shame not welcomed, desires not allowed. All this becomes an echo, and the echo becomes a cry, and the scream becomes a vice. We all have a part that we hide, the anger that we swallow, the fear that we disguise, the desire we deny even to ourselves. Jung called it shadow, not because it was something bad, but because it lives in the darkness of our consciousness. And what happens with everything we repress for a long time? 1 hour, he finds a way out. In a disguised but intense way. Maybe that's why addiction is so powerful. It's the shadow trying to talk, trying to be seen, trying to be accepted, even if in a crooked way. Have you ever thought that self-destructive behavior can be just a desperate plea for love? Not romantic love, but the love that welcomes what no one wants to see. The dirty part, confused, gross, real. Because the more we try to pretend that this part doesn't exist, the more it grows. And one day it rises and it says, you can keep trying to be who the world wants you to be, but I am who you really are. And I'm tired of being hidden. Perhaps this is what vice expresses. The soul that is tired of being denied. The shadow that cries for integration. Because you cannot heal pretending that everything is fine. The cure begins when we look into the eyes of our darkness and choose not to run away. There are people who only change when they get tired of pretending that they're not falling, when there is no more where to lean or mask to sustain. That's where the one from the bottom of the well comes. Place most fear, but that few understand. Because the bottom is not punishment, it is passage. It is when the ego collapses, and with it go away the lies that we told to survive. There, in the fall, where no one else can save you, neither the vices nor the characters, is where, for the first time, you find something more real. You, raw, whole, incomplete, true. And it hurts. It hurts like a rebirth, because that's what it is. The rock bottom is not the end. It's the beginning without the armor. It's when you stop seeking applause and begin to seek meaning. When you stop chasing the best of yourself and begins to embrace the most honest of you. It is the place where the soul whispers, you no longer need to hide. And even though everything around you seems to crumble, something in you finally blossoms. It's not beautiful, it's not fast, but it is true. And sometimes it's only when everything falls apart that life begins to make sense. In the end, no one wants to run away from life. People just want to escape the pain that life carries when it loses its soul. But what if instead of running away, we learn to look. Look at pain with curiosity, not fear. With presence, not haste. With love, not judgment. Because pain is not the enemy, it is the messenger. She did not come to destroy you. She came to show you where you lost yourself. And when you stop fighting her, you begin to hear what she has always tried to say. It is in this silence, in this intimate moment between collapse and courage, that something sacred happens, not as a religion, but as truth, as a sense, as an invisible thread that connects you back to your own essence. Healing is not an external miracle. It is an internal return, a reconciliation with the parts you rejected for so long. It's saying, I see you, even in the mess, even broken, still you are worthy to exist. And that is how the addiction begins to lose strength, when emptiness is filled, not with distractions, but with presence. When you stop running and decide to go home, inside. Because in the end, every addiction is just this, a soul that has forgotten the way back to itself. And now you tell me, have you ever felt like this too? Have you ever tried to silence a pain that no one could see? What inside of you is still asking to be heard? If this video touched any part of you, even in silence, share with someone who needs to hear it, and leave here in the comments what was the phrase that crossed you the most. Maybe by sharing your story, you can help someone find their way back to you. See you in the next video.